All right, thank you, Chairman. Good afternoon, everyone. I am here to just convey some remarks regarding the conduct of the campaign, certainly both campaigns, and some related observations that we have made here as Team JLP. Now, by the way we have conducted our campaign to date, I think it is clear to the electorate and indeed the wider public, both here on the Rock and in the diaspora, that it is the Jamaica Labour Party that is being responsible, sober, and dignified in the conduct of our campaign. Indeed, we are the political party that is serious about a peaceful, more harmonious, and orderly Jamaica. It is quite evident that we regard the right of the Jamaican people to exercise their constitutional right and express their democratic will on election day. We have been clear in the Jamaica Labour Party that we will not promote violence, irresponsible conduct, or attack democratic institutions in our beloved country. Team JLP does not promote or endorse bullyism in any way, shape, or form. And if inappropriate conduct manifests, we are prepared to hold our members and supporters to account and condemn any departure from the standards to which we hold ourselves. On the contrary, however, over the past few days, we have seen incidents which confirm that our main opponents, the opposition PNP, is neither suitable nor ready to govern Jamaica. Their utterances and general posture and attitude project arrogance. It reflects an egregious lack of principle, and it signals a willingness, as it were, to engage in acts of intimidation in apparent breach of the code, the political code of conduct. Team JLP has noted reports of a PNP candidate and his supporters appearing to intentionally posture in a way which signaled a willingness to obstruct or otherwise impede a lawful tour being undertaken by our Prime Minister and Party Leader, Dr. the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, and one of our candidates over recent days. We have seen disrespectful declarations by PNP supporters that the Jamaica Labour Party members and supporters, to include our Prime Minister and Party Leader, cannot come into an area which they clearly regard as their stronghold and feel as though they have ownership and superintendence over that area. We have also seen and heard a PNP activist and well-known PNP blogger on social media threatening that he is willing to open gunfire, kill people, and turn Jamaica into Haiti if his party, the PNP, loses the upcoming general election. The menacing and threatening words that emanated while the individual pledged his loyalty to the PNP candidate in St. Elizabeth is indeed disturbing. As law-abiding Jamaicans, we note and welcome reports in the news media that the individual has been taken into police custody. We also note persistent attacks by the PNP on the media, an important and indispensable pillar in our democratic system of governance. We were neither shocked nor surprised by the PNP's subsequent public admission by way of a media release that they have moved to blacklist all proposed questioners from a particular media entity in the upcoming national debates being organized by the Jamaica Debates Commission. Of note, also, is the PNP's desperate, unwarranted, and quite frankly, childish move to report to the Broadcasting Commission journalists merely because they did not want to be criticized or did not like how they were criticized by the respective journalists. These unprincipled actions do not augur well, nor do they accord with the democratic traditions we hold dear and resolve to uphold and preserve as well-thinking and well-meaning Jamaicans. All in all, ladies and gentlemen, the PNP's actions in relation to the press reveal that they are prepared to be vindictive, oppressive, and dictatorial, using political power to exact vengeance and pursue witch hunts. It is important for the public to note that all of these recent acts have come following certain declarations. I speak here of declarations such as a declaration by a misguided PNP candidate that she is prepared for war and, quote, if a war, end quote. And there's also another declaration by another misguided PNP candidate that, quote, shavar mandem, end quote, and, quote again, all who switch are going to end up in a ditch, end quote. We condemn in the strongest terms the aforementioned intimidatory, anti-democratic, arrogant, and despicable utterances and actions by the PNP and its representatives. The PNP's entitled approach has no place, quite frankly, in a peace-loving, law-abiding Jamaica where we are committed to elections that are free and fair and, of course, free from fear. It is simply not the kind of politics and society we're seeking to forge here in 2025. However, we are not surprised that there have not been one word of condemnation from the leadership of the PNP, because it was, quite frankly, their very leader, Mark Golding, who set the tone, we believe, for this kind of behavior when he urged his supporters, his PNP followers, to, quote-unquote, get wicked upon them. Because in his words, quote, Labour right now go give up this so easy. And of course, he said those things while noting that he represents a PNP garrison, which he said, quote, give him a strength, end quote. There's also the PNP's embattled and beleaguered General Secretary Dayton Campbell, who uttered equally concerning words when he said over in Darlington, Westmoreland, some weeks ago, that when people go low or when others go low, he goes lower. That is not the tone that should be emanating from the de facto chief executive officer, CEO of a political party. And of course, we are all well aware that the PNP is up and down the country, banding about the place their new mantra, blood and fire, indicating that they are blood and fire comrades. Ladies and gentlemen, it is clear that Mark Golding and his supporters, by virtue of their recent and past conduct and utterances, yes, have been reiterating and underscoring for the people of Jamaica that they are simply not suitable, they are not ready, and they are indeed not prepared to lead this beloved and great country of ours. I close by reaffirming that the Jamaica Labour Party remains fully committed to a peaceful general election, an election that is free and fair, and as I said earlier, is free from fear. The way we have conducted our campaign signal that we are committed to the best traditions of peace-loving and harmonious conduct of elections. I thank you.
Thank you. Without further delay, I invite the campaign chairman, Dr. Christopher Tufton, who is to my right, to make his opening comments.
Thank you very much. Am I on? Mike? Thank you. Thank you very much, Abka. And let me just greet my colleagues at the head table and to members of the media. Good afternoon to you all. So I'll just give an update on where we are in the campaign, a general update. First of all, the efforts on the ground continues. I've personally been to quite a few parishes, of course, other leaders, led of course by the most honorable Prime Minister and party leader, Andrew Holness, has been out in the field. The energy is good. The response from the public, from constituents, are positive. We're listening. We are discussing. We are responding. We're making suggestions, and we're pushing the agenda, which we believe is the right agenda for the country, of the Jamaica Labour Party. And so far, we are very confident that there is significant take-up, and we will continue to do so in humility and in a sense of consultation. So that's the sort of tone of the approach that we have taken, and the response on the ground continues to be positive. Over the last few days, of course, we had nominations, so we know it's now official, as the country would know. We have fielded candidates in all 63 constituencies. All went well. They are duly nominated, and we are now in another phase of the campaign, which is to present and reinforce the suitability of our candidates, their talents, their skills, their credentials, their vision for each constituency that they're representing, and their representation, which is characterized by care and compassion, but also competence, with the flagship, of course, being the government, the Jamaica Labour Party's government, overarching support to continue to build on the advancement, the achievements that we have made over the last 9 years. So the nominations went well. The logistics, the implementation from our perspective, from our side, went well. We had record numbers out in the field in different constituencies, and the energy level for us is right where it ought to be at this point in time, monitoring the activities of the campaign so far. So we're comfortable, and we're confident that we are moving in a good direction leading up to September 3rd, when the Jamaican people will decide. Our next meeting will be mass meeting, that is. We have several meetings each day across the country. Our next major meeting will be in Sam Sharp Square this Sunday at 5 p.m. in the evening, of course, when a slate of our candidates, not all, but certainly the Western candidates, will be on display, will present themselves, and some will speak, and we will continue to advance the message of the Labour Party, highlighting our achievements, but will pivot somewhat to the future and how we see the future in providing leadership, and that I will allow my colleague and chairman of the Manifesto Committee to comment more on momentarily. So we anticipate a good day on Sunday, as we did in Halfway Tree. We will focus on Western Jamaica, not all island, as we did in Halfway Tree. And there'll be a range of speakers, of course, headlined by the party leader and Prime Minister, the Most Honorable Dr. Andrew Holness. So we invite the public to tune in on various platforms, including social media, but also mainstream media, for that event. And if you can be present, please come on out. We have demonstrated that we can have a good meeting, we can have a safe meeting, and also both in substance, style, and presentation, it is a good experience. And therefore, we invite all and sundry to be a part of Sam Sharp Square if you are able to come this Sunday. Otherwise, please tune in, because there's a lot that will be in store, as I said, as we pivot to the next phase of the campaign going forward towards September 3rd. I wanted to make a quick comment on some of the utterances that we have been seeing played out in the media space, starting with a comment from the opposition PNP, and specifically from Peter Bunting, who is the shadow spokesperson on national security. And I wanted to highlight this comment because, you know, this country has been kept back to a large extent because of crime and the fear of crime. And I think it's important, particularly in this current dispensation, when Jamaicans are being asked to decide who is the best party, political organization to carry this country forward, to appreciate the difference between the PNP and the Jamaica Labour Party. And I think Peter Bunting has offered an opportunity for the country to zero in on what this difference means for them, for their families, for their communities, for their freedom of movement, for their businesses, for their own safety and security within their space, which, as we know, has been a major debilitating factor in our country. Mr. Bunting, at his party's manifesto launch, and as reported in the media, speaks to this difference between the PNP and the JLP from a crime-fighting standpoint, describing, and I'm quoting here, the JLP having a warrior mentality among the security forces, while the PNP promotes a guardian mentality. On the face of it, I really gave it an earnest effort to try to understand what he means by that, and had a difficulty coming to terms with that interpretation based on his own track record as a former Minister of National Security, and certainly the track record of the PNP in terms of fighting crime, when juxtaposed or compared with what this government, this Jamaica Labour Party government, has done. Firstly, I want to say that given the heinous nature of the crimes that we have seen in this country meted out on innocent Jamaicans, sometimes it does take a warrior mentality to respond, and to respond within a context, not to disregard human rights, as some would want to claim, but to respond in a way that will recognize the seriousness of these crimes and why it is important to assert yourself as a state, as a police force supported by the army, and indeed by all of us, in order to face down the criminals and the criminality that has been taking place, and to achieve the ultimate objective of making our society safer. So he may, Mr. Bunting, that is, not realize that he may have been complimenting the Jamaica Labour Party strategy by recognizing that you have to assert yourselves in the midst of a crisis. And we have had, for generations, a crisis of crime and violence, and it has taken its toll in many ways on our society. His comments, I think, too, are somewhat condescending, not somewhat, but condescending of the security forces, because implicit in what he's saying is that somehow the security forces are conducting themselves in a manner that should not be supported. And that's the interpretation, because let's face it, the government prescribes policy, the security forces implement. They are the operational agency of crime fighting. And in criticizing us as a government, he's also technically criticizing the work of the security forces, even though I've heard him say otherwise. But in this case, this is how it comes across. And he needs to clarify that. We believe that the security forces, based on government policy and government support in terms of resources, in terms of additional manpower, upgrading of stations, additional mobility, additional intelligence gathering, have done a commendable job. And the manifestations of that is the significant reduction in serious crimes, well over 40%, closer to 45% year to date, 43% to be exact, in terms of murders. And that for me means, for us, means a safer society, and a society where Jamaicans can move about more freely and pursue their ambitions in whatever way, shape, or form, particularly in communities where they once had to close their doors early and live in fear. And this is not something to criticize, this is something to commend. And I think that Mr. Bunting is way off course in his description of how we have approached responding to crime and violence. The other thing I'd say is that he needs to be reminded of his own legacy. He needs to be reminded of his own legacy. First of all, we have 318 fewer Jamaicans that have been murdered this year when compared to 2024. That's the 43% reduction year to date. That's a very good thing. And Jamaicans, I think appropriately so, have applauded the work that this government and the security forces have been doing. Gangs in this country have been cut from 300 when the Jamaica Labour Party took office to under 100s. That's the intelligence that have been made public by the security forces. That is a very good thing. If it takes a warrior mentality to achieve that, it means a safer society. And his lack of recognition of that, to our mind, is an indication that he's out of touch. And if his approach is to do otherwise, whatever guardian mentality means, then what it will mean is that we will see a surge in crime and violence again, which is what we don't want. And the Jamaican electorate must be very mindful of that. His own legacy, I think, demonstrates why he speaks the way he does, because he was not very successful when he was at the wicket as the chief minister or portfolio leader for crime. In fact, serious crimes on average increased by some 60% and 20% spike in the final year of his tenure. So Mr. Bunting did not achieve success, and he's on record of saying a range of things as to why, including the need for divine intervention, which we have no problem with divine intervention, but the Bible does say faith without works is a problem. And he clearly did not do the work. And therefore, we are of the view, simply put, that he neither has the experience or indeed the moral authority to describe the crime-fighting measures that have been pursued by this government and this Jamaica Constabulary Force in a disparaging or indeed disrespectful way. And the country, we urge in this very important time, should take note of that, where we are, where we're going, and what we don't want to return to as they decide how to cast their votes on September 3rd. There is a difference. We agree with him. The difference is we are tough on crime and we are getting results. He wants to cuddle in terms of his approach. And as his own experience has shown, he achieved nothing. In fact, crime got worse. I want to quickly comment on another issue that has been a public discussion, which is the public opinion polls that started a few days ago, but yesterday party standings were in one of our daily newspapers. Today, actually. First of all, let's make it clear, we don't attack polls. This is not our position. This JLP party and government, we tend to shy away from speaking too much about polls. We observe, we assess, we listen, and we then determine how we position ourselves in terms of our response, our feedback, and indeed our policies and programs. We observe what is done independent of us, and we conduct our own internally, because it is important for us to recognize a sense of direction and the public's perception of our direction. So I want to make that clear. We have observed those polls, and I'll only comment by saying that based on all the polls that we have seen and those that we have conducted internally, we are comfortable that the Jamaica Labour Party has the momentum going into these elections on September 3rd, and that's a comfortable position to be in, but it's not a reason to be complacent. It's another reason to become arrogant. It's not a reason to feel, as some may be tempted to do, that somehow it is over. That's not our position at all. Our position is we will continue to work harder for the support of the Jamaican people in order to secure a third term, because we believe that the Jamaica Labour Party is the best party at this time to move the country forward. So while these polls do offer some insights, we have also formed insights based on our own internal polls, and we believe that there are some similarities in some areas, and in other areas we have alternative views. But we are comfortable and confident in our approach, in our strategy, and we will continue to pursue that approach and strategy going forward. In the coming days, just before I introduce my colleague, Minister Johnson Smith, you will see the strategy continue to reinforce the positives of the campaign, but there will be some pivoting around other things that we will highlight as part of nudging, encouraging, educating in some cases for persons who may not know the Jamaican electorate as to what this party represents, why Andrew Holness is still the best choice to lead Jamaica into the next 5 years, why we have a team that is competent, and why it is important for us to continue to build on the achievements that this government has made possible, working with the people of Jamaica over the past 9 years. And we ask you to observe, listen, where you have questions, ask those questions, and it will be our intention to make it as easy as possible for you by creating the necessary platforms for the Jamaican people to have access to information and to make informed decisions come September 3rd. So that's my brief overview and introduction at this point to the next phase, and I'll ask my colleague, Kamina Johnson-Smith, now to take over. Thank you.